Welcome back to this very special Indianomics with Professor Barry Eichengreen. We are speaking in the sylvan surroundings of the Neemrana Fort, where NCAR is holding its conference. Professor Eichengreen, thank you very much for waiting on. Well, let me just zoom out of the economic issues and speak about this major commercial occurrence, the technological development of AI. How do you think AI is going to pan out? Do you think in the medium term this is going to impact labor? How will it impact India's service exports?
Very little in 2024, because it will take firms time to figure out how to apply AI. But down the road, I think AI will be a factor in the service sector, for example. So coding, programming, call center work, all of that is going to be increasingly mechanized. There'll still be jobs for people with skills who can design and adapt the AI, but these sectors will not be sources of employment for the semi-skilled to the same extent they were in the past.
Okay. You know, at the moment, India's service sector exports are doing very well. It looks like the middle office is almost middle office of the world is moving towards India through these global captive centers. Do you see that getting impacted, or is that a secular story?
I do think it will be impacted, because what does middle office mean? It means things like accounting, yes, which AI is poised to take over in substantial amounts. So there will be jobs for people who are designing the AI applications and how artificial intelligence is being used. But the people with eye shades, if you will, who've been doing the accounting are going to be competing with the software, no question.
So it will be a medium-term problem for India. We cannot assume that we will have...
India will have to adapt, just like everyone.
Oh, yes. Okay, let me come to the more broader geopolitical issues of onshoring or nearshoring or friendshoring, or at least moving away from China. Do you see India as a major beneficiary, or not as big as we thought it would be?
So we have seen Chinese exports to the United States decline.
Yes.
The beneficiaries have been Mexico, Vietnam, other parts of Southeast Asia, and then India. So India is part of that story. Apple is moving some of its assembly from China to India. So yes, India is poised to benefit, but it has an awful lot of competition in that space. And there are other economies that are ahead of India in terms of the logistics and the critical mass and the existing exports to the US and the West.
Okay. More generally, how are you looking at the India growth story? There is a feeling among political circles, even global investors tell us that this is the India decade and it's the largest, fastest growing economy. But there is another body of data, like high fiscal deficit, not adequate tax to GDP, labor data that's looking dull. Do you think there isn't such a great story and we are overselling ourselves to ourselves?
The question is how long these high single-digit growth rates can continue. The current government has addressed the infrastructure deficiencies. To my knowledge, it hasn't really addressed the educational deficiencies. So India has great engineers and technical institutes. It doesn't have quality education for the masses. It doesn't have highly developed apprenticeship training programs like they have in Germany. So I think there are plenty of things that India needs to do for this, for this to be the India decade.
Okay, so if I can force you to give me a number, there are a body of people who think that this decade India would be a 6 to 6.5% compounded annual growth country, and there are those who believe that it could be an 8 plus or minus 50 basis. Where's your bet?
My bet is that India can achieve 8% if the government exercises the fiscal restraint that we talked about before, and private savings rates rise, so that there are, on both counts, more funds for investment in education, healthcare, infrastructure, and industry.
Okay, I mean, we have a track record of what the governments have done. If you extrapolate that track record, where would you place the bet? Do you still think that we could make it, we could reach a higher compounded annual growth than we did in the last 20 years?
Again, it's not all about the public sector accounts. It's also about the private sector, the household sector, and its saving. But I think that there is room for the public sector to act on the revenue side, raise more revenues, and that will go some way toward reducing the deficit, freeing up more resources for other purposes.
Okay. Well, let me end with getting you back into the shorter term. You're not so confident that the Fed will have much of an opportunity to cut next year. What is your expectation in terms of when and how many cuts next year from the Federal Reserve?
Again, it all depends on whether we get that soft landing or not. Assuming we get that soft landing, I think we may see the Fed cut only twice next year. If we get a recession, all bets are off and the Fed will swing into action.
Okay. In that case, I mean, this is a very minor point. The Reserve Bank also had tightened along with the Fed. And in the last 2 days, they have announced a repo which looks like a dovish pivot here as well. Do you think that there is a chance India will have to cut, or emerging markets like India will have a chance to start cutting rates by, say, mid next year?
If the world economy continues to cool, yes, I think there will be scope for that. If, on the other hand, India continues to grow by 8%, there'll be plenty of demand and pressure for the RBI to stay where it is. Yeah.
We haven't done 8, we've done 7.5. But no, more importantly, what you're saying is that a cut would be really bad news.
Well, I think on current conditions, a cut would be premature, and we will see a series of cuts only if economies begin to turn down.
Okay. Finally, a question which we don't normally discuss in conferences like this. Do you see the rupee becoming prominent as an international currency, or do you think it's going to be largely, dollar dominated? I mean, why rupee? Do you see dollar domination ebbing at all?
I see dollar domination eroding very, very slowly over time. So the dollar loses 1/2 of 1 percentage point a year in terms of its share of global foreign exchange reserves. It's lost 10 percentage points over 2 decades. So that is erosion, but at a glacial pace. And the question is, who will step in if the dollar steps out? We used to think it would be the the currencies of big economies like India, China, etc. What we're seeing now is the currencies of smaller economies are trading as internationally as well because of new digital technologies. So with the digital revolution, it may be the rupee, but it also may be the Norwegian krona or the Singapore dollar. We'll have to see.
Oh, yes. We have seen them being used. Even the Australian dollar has been used in bilateral settlements. Just a final question. Are you expecting that climate is going to reduce global GDP? Potential growth in India is seen as 6.5 or 7, but are we overestimating, and climate may take away something?
Climate will definitely take away something because we are going to have to invest in climate change abatement instead of investing in other forms of productive capacity. There are sometimes some synergies there. Climate change will provide impetus for the development of new technologies, but I do worry about the need to divert resources away from production and away from investment in education and the like toward necessary climate change abatement investments.
Well, we have managed this year. We've had an El Nino year, but we've managed 7.5% growth. So we are hoping that we'll be able to grow in spite of climate. Professor Eichengreen, thank you very much for sparing time for us here at the beautiful Neem Rana Fort.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it on this edition of Indianomics. Thanks much for watching.